by talk show host Alex Jones about the corruption in the CPS nationally, which we just listened to most of it. In addition, Senator Schaefer led opposition to HB 582 and SB 304, two bills introduced by fellow Republicans that would have likely resulted in increasing child sex slave trafficking. Republicans that were going to introduce this bill. These bills would have made it legal for teenagers to participate in illicit sex acts. The bills effectively removed the legal authority that police now have to pick up teenagers and get them into protective custody so they can no longer be pimped for those sex acts. This goes on and on and on, this article. So, I'm sorry, but I don't buy it. I don't buy this whole murder-suicide thing. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So let's go ahead. I'm going to finish one more thing here, and then we'll go to the part 3 next. This relates to this in a certain extent, and I reported last week, I believe, was on the lawsuit claiming the Boy Scouts cover-up of sex abuse, and we got in, and that was from the Associated Press, about how the lawyer said that they showed files that the organization has covered up for decades, the Boy Scouts. The trial is significant because the files could offer a rare window into how the organization has responded into sex abuse by Scout leaders. And there was literally attorney for a man who was allegedly molested in the 80s by a Scout leader obtained about 1,000 Boy Scout sex files and expected to release some of them when the trial began on March 17th. We reported on that last week. I mean, just sick. But if you weren't informed about the Boy Scouts, before that I'd reported on the Girl Scouts, most people think, it's this nice, wholesome organization. And I'm not saying people haven't been benefited, and this goes, but again, whenever you have children in the mix, you're going to have a certain segment of the population that is absolutely demonically, totally possessed. I would have to say, you have to be possessed to be literally conniving to do something where you're trying to have sex with children. You're going to have a certain sect of the population that is going to put themselves in that position where they can be around those children. And so, again, if you don't know about it, how would you even know to pray against it? This one is from a listener of mine named Clint, and it's the Boy Scouts and the Freemasons, just a letter he wrote. He wrote me some really insightful things. He was the one that wrote about the junk DNA, about debunking that. And he has a high amount of knowledge in the area of molecular biology and microbiology, and he was the one that had made that very insightful statement about junk DNA in some of the previous teachings I've done. And then he goes on to say, I wasn't surprised to hear about the Boy Scout molestation scandal in your most recent teaching. And what I did is I reposted that link below this little paragraph. He said, the founder of the Boy Scouts, the British General Robert Baden-Powell, was a member of the Scottish Rite Temple and probably thought of the Boy Scouts as a recruiting tool for future members. Here's a quick introduction to the issue here. It gives a whole history of this guy, this devil, started the Boy Scouts. There's plenty of other disgusting things about Baden-Powell out there, but the connection to Freemasonry is all I need to know. Additionally, the Boy Scouts of America are highly integrated with the Mormons, and again, one other cult out there. And given how the beginnings of that group are so tightly tied to the Masons, no surprise there either. And you have all these groups out there like the Mormons and the Freemasons and the Boy Scouts, which on the surface appears these upright, upstanding organizations, but that's how they look on the outside. Inwardly, they're ravening wolves. I mean, I'm talking about at the very, very head, and many of the people that were, not all the people that obviously volunteer for these things. And I'm not saying every Mormon's this wicked, ravening person. I'm not saying that. I'm saying at the top, though. At the top, you're always going to find corruption. And they're going to want to come off with this nice, wonderful veneer. But unfortunately, it's like Jesus said, on the outside they're like whitened sepulchres, but on the inside they're like full of dead men's bones. Okay? And when he was describing the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So this is how these organizations would present themselves. Real nice on the outside, but inwardly, they're full of corruption and wickedness on many different levels. So he says, I'm not a parent, but I can see how any Bible-believing Christian could let his or her kids involved with Boy Scouting if he knew about this organization. So again, it's another warning regarding that. I hate to have to put all these out, but I can't in good conscience not do it. So we're going to end part 2 there. We'll go to part 3 next.